Welcome! Let's paint a Christmas hobby horse with some watercolor. If we haven't met, I'm Viv with Art with Viv, and I just can't wait to get started, so let's go. Alright, I have drawn out my little hobby horse, and the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to wet the background of his face. I'm going to be really careful not to get his eyes, his bridle, his mane, or that cute little sprig of holly over there wet, because I want the brown, yes, we're using a sort of a light brown, I want that to stay on his face and not on everything else. So I have put that in there. While it was wet, let the water do the work, put the brown in, wetting the section underneath his little bridle, and we are just going to drop that brown in, and we're just going to continue to work like this and get his whole head painted in brown, making sure we avoid all of the details. And I am using my number 2, my size 4 round to do this. And that is my Creative Mark Mimic paintbrushes. They are faux squirrel. I love these brushes. They hold a lot of water. I will link them below in case you're interested in checking them out. And now I'm adding a little bit of dark brown where I want some shadows while it's still wet, and just blending it out just ever so slightly with the tip of my brush. And we are going to continue to paint his head with these light brown, and then putting a little bit of the dark brown in the shadows. So I'm going to let you watch, and I will return shortly. Okay, we have the brown in, so now I'm going to take a mixture of blue and brown, which makes sort of a dark color, almost black, but not quite. And I'm going to paint in his eye. And I'm leaving a little white highlights so that his eye looks like it has a little shine to it, gives him a little life. Now I'm going to mix up a little bit of red. And I am going to just paint those stripes in on the stick for the hobby horse. Now, when we were kids, we could not afford these fancy little hobby horses like this. My mama gave us a mop and a broom, and we ran around in the yard, and the mop was the horse's head, and the broom was a donkey's head. I don't know how we figured that out as kids, but we did not have the actual store-bought ones. We used mops and brooms as our horses, and you know what, it was fine because our imaginations were so big. We were riding stallions in our minds. It wasn't a broom, it wasn't a mop, it was a stallion, and we would chase each other and play cowboys and shoot at each other, and it was just so much fun. So we didn't have these, but you don't necessarily have to have, you know, a store-bought toy to have fun. But I do love the look of these hobby horses, especially the old-fashioned ones. So I decided that's what we're going to paint today. I don't think y'all would want me to paint a mop and a broom and call it a hobby horse. And as we paint these little stripes, what we want to do is make it darker on the edges and then lighter toward the center. So I'm trying to pick up, I'm taking my damp dry brush and just picking up some of that paint throughout the center. My brush was not doing the job, so I just took some of my paper towel and dabbed up the center to lighten it, and then I'm just going to darken those edges, and that makes it look a little more three-dimensional, gives it a little bit of dimension to have it darker on the edges, lighter in the center, gives it a little bit of a 3D look. So we got that going on. Now let's see, what are we going to paint next? Let's paint his bridle. Now I have switched to a detail brush, and these detail brushes are golden maple, and that is a size 2/0, so it's really tiny, and I'm just working in that red paint for his bridle. I'm trying to make it darker on the edges and lighter toward the center, just like we did our stick, our little riding stick. So I'm going to let you watch, and I'll be back just in a second. I just noticed that I forgot his ears, so let me go up here and paint in his ears. They got kind of lost in his mane. And he has sort of a little raggedy felt mane, is just little strips of felt up there. And we're going to make it green to contrast with the red. And because we got so much warm going on, we need to introduce a cool color just to sort of balance things out. So I'm just using a medium green and a really dark green, and the really dark green is going where the shadows would be, and the lighter green is going where, of course, the highlights and the light would be hitting those little strips of felt that he has down his neck for his mane. Now, I used to make ornaments out of felt that looked like hobby horses, and I would use a candy cane as the little stick and hang them on my tree, and I just loved those things. They were easy to make, they were cute, and I would make them out of different colors of felt, and that's where I got the idea to do this hobby horse. It's actually sort of a combination of, you know, a Christmas gift plus the ornaments I used to make. So you're gonna go ahead and just put that green on the little felt strips and put it lighter out toward the light where the light would be hitting it, and a darker green toward that center where they connect to his neck, just like that. And again, I am using a number 2/0. It's a really small, fine golden maple detail brush. So I'm going to let you watch as I paint the mane. I'm not going to paint the whole mane. You kind of get it, and then we will continue on. So I'm just going to add a few more shadows. It's getting sort of dry, the mane is. I've worked on it so long, so I'm just coming back in there with some darker green and add more shadows while it's a little bit drier so that they'll stay more in place and it gives a little more dimension. And then I'm just going to continue to finish out the mane, and there we have it. The mane is finished pretty much. We'll just put a few last little strips in there, clumps of hair. Let's paint in the inside of his ear darker, a dark brown, so that you can tell that's his little ear sticking up. I think I got his ear a little too forward on his head, but it's okay. It's not a real horse. So now I'm going to come in here, and there is a little orange slice that I have. For some reason, I am just like fascinated with the orange slices. So I have that as a decoration, and then I have little holly leaves, which is what I'm painting now with a little yellow green. I have little holly leaves with a few berries sort of clumped together with that orange slice, and so we're going to paint those little holly leaves first, get in there with some light, kind of almost a green gold, but it's not a green gold. I'm just using yellow and green mixed together with a little more yellow than green, so it's sort of like a green gold, but it's more of a yellow green. Green gold is a color all by itself in its own little league. And then I'm going around the very edges with some darker green just to define the holly leaves. Now I'm going to go ahead and get some of this sort of orangey red and paint in the flesh of the orange in a little circle there. And I'm going to add a little bit of yellow to that, just some lemon yellow, just to brighten it up in some of the areas. We are moving right along with this little guy. He is not a time-consuming decoration. He would make a cute gift tag. Make him a little bigger. He'd be a really, really cute card. Add some decoration around him maybe. Now I'm just got the red, and I'm painting in those little berries that go with the holly. And you notice I'm leaving a little white spot. That's for their highlight in there, and being really careful to do so that it just doesn't look like three blobs. I'm taking some darker orange and painting in the lines for the sections of the orange, how oranges are divided into those little sections like a wagon wheel. And some even darker orange and going around the outside edge, and that'll be the peel, the orange peel. And then I'm going to take sort of a dirty gray color and just paint in that rind. I don't want it to be white, but I don't want it to be too dark either. That normally would be the white part, but if I left it white, it would stick out too much. So now I'm taking just a really watery blue, and I'm adding the shadows to the white stripes of the stick. Notice I'm just going down the edges where I want it to be darker and lighter toward the center, just like we did with the red stripes, but only now we're using watery blue for the white stripe. There we go. Now we've got the little wheels at the bottom, and we will have to address those. I'm just adding a little bit more detail to that orange, a few more little tiny lines. So I think I'm going to go with green again to try to balance out all these warm colors we have with the red and the golden brown. And I'm just going to make the little wheel part green, and I'm just painting it in there. Nothing's not any special technique. The paper was dry when I started. Then I'm gonna just put a little darker green around the edges and let that wetness of the wet paint just kind of blend those two shades of green together. Just paint around the little center part, add a few little shadows around the edges, and we are just about finished with him. Just about. So we are going to go ahead and paint that other wheel in on the other side. We're going to make it a little darker. Notice how I'm leaving just the tiniest little white line between the two wheels so that they have some separation. And now to make him look a little homemade, we need to add maybe some stitches. So I'm going to get my dark brown, and I'm just going to add little stitch marks so that he looks like a little stitched together hobby horse. So just right around the edges, I'm just doing little dash marks so that it looks like stitches, that we stitched him together. I told you this was a combination of the cute little ornaments I used to make for our Christmas tree, and I used to give them to my kids' classmates and stuff like that. So there you have it. You have the cutest little hobby horse. And I'm just going to add, I see that I didn't get a little paint there. So there you go. Cutest hobby horse ever. I hope you enjoyed this. And happy painting. I will see you next Monday with another little Christmas mini. All right.